And well, it's the DocTalk podcast with Jenna Burton, and I'm talking quietly because Neve is here in our arms. I don't want to wake her up.
James, you don't know the meaning of quiet. Don't fool anybody.
Coming to you from the Epic Podcast Studio right here in the Rove Hotel downtown Dubai. We're going to talk, well, we had set out to talk about anesthesia. We're going to talk about that another day. Then you thought we're going to talk oncology, which I think we should talk. And then I wanted to talk a little bit about cracks on feet and stuff. And
you've got an interesting idea for diversions today. I was all for the oncology. You've decided you try and get your medical ailments in, James.
That's what I do. Yeah. I try to get consults. Yeah, all the time. The oncology one's kind of interesting because the number of people that I know who've had issues, and it just kind of comes up, right? Like I'm talking to someone and they kind of go, oh yeah, I had to go get these sunspots removed and it was benign, so it wasn't an issue. And other people who've had things and melanomas, and it's like, whoa, what are you talking about? And then people who've had breast cancers, stomach cancers, colon cancers, and it just kind of doesn't fit into a conversation. And then you notice something and they go, oh yeah, well, it's weird.
Well, it's exceptionally prevalent. And even the other day, I was looking for something on my Facebook Messenger from years ago. And as I was going through, I came along a load of messages from people that have now passed away.
Really?
Even really young people. There was a lovely nurse in a hospital in Oldham I used to work with. Great guy in Oldham. Yes.
Okay, so give me the location here. Is this Manchester?
Yes, okay. Well done, spot on. On the outskirts of Manchester. And actually, it's not even the outskirts. It's not the city centre. Okay. How do you know Oldham?
You know what? I saw it on a show that I was watching, one of these history shows, because I've never been to that part.
A history show on Oldham?
Go figure. Oldham figured into it. Someone came from there. I was like, okay.
What do you watch at night time, James?
I'm always trying to be ahead of the curve.
Well done. You identified Oldham Hospital, which is where I used to work. And that was back in the day, in my foundation year. And anyway, really lovely guy, so young. I don't know what type of cancer he had, but I saw just recently that he had died, and there's now like a memorial to him within the ward that he worked in. He was there so many years. Other people that have had stomach cancer, other people that have had thyroid cancer. Lots of young people tend to get thyroid cancer. I know 2 people actually that are going through treatment at the moment, all within their early 30s.
Wow, because I'm kind of getting a little older, right? So I'm sort of hit the 50 mark. And so a lot of people start to manifest some of these things 50 and above. Yeah. So I'm meeting a lot of people who I know or friends that I'm here and I'm going, wow, they seem so young. And then someone nudges me and goes, we're talking, they're in their late 50s, It's like, oh, okay, I guess, which does not make it okay, but you just start to notice more things like that. But when you start getting the 30s and people are having cancer scares, it's like, whoa.
But even younger, and I think it's probably because we're more in touch with the whole world, aren't we, with social media and the internet, etc. So there's an awful lot of posts that come through, even on British Mums Dubai or any of the, the community forums that exist of young children that are going through cancer treatments. I find it so
And what kind of cancers are they?
Often brain tumours.
Brain tumours?
Quite a common one. Usually this is someone that has been born with, there's something.
There's something there.
Yeah, what I mean by that is, once you reach a certain age, it's usually after about 80, sort of between the 50 and 80 mark is very common to start getting oncology problems, so like cancers, etc. After the age of 80, you don't even think of it as it's something that likely is going to be hereditary because you're 80 and the body stops doing things properly, so you're more likely to develop cancer.
What do you mean it stops doing things properly?
So, do you know how you tend to get a cancer is every cell produces another cell, effectively, through replication, and everyone now knows RNA because of the Pfizer vaccine that comes through. However, that's involved in the process of making new cells. And every time you make a new cell, you have something that codes for the cell, and then you have something that checks the cell has been made properly.
Oh, okay.
And when
that's a really good explanation.
Because normally my explanations are terrible.
No, because when we start thinking about how these things work, and we see the letters, it's RNA, and what's it doing? And people say, it's a new kind of thing. And
oh no, that's not what RNA
does. But then people go in to start talking about how cells work and how things. And your explanation of how cells, that's pretty good.
Well, I'll tell you now, because now I feel like I've got to explain what RNA is. You've got DNA, RNA is the opposite to the DNA and it becomes a template. So when you make a new DNA, it looks at the RNA and does the opposite again. So then you've then got a replication of what was the original DNA. That makes sense.
Cool.
So you've got okay, let's make the correct cell. Let's check the cell's been made correctly. And ultimately, if one of those is out of sync, that's how you can then develop the wrong cell. And that cell has the ability to go on to make more and more and more cells that are incorrect. And that's often how you get a cancerous growth.
Oh, okay.
So it's accumulation of cells that aren't meant to be there. And they require a blood supply, they require food, nutrition. So your body ends up feeding this clump of cells that wasn't meant to be there. And eventually, if it carries on and it grows too fast, which often happens in younger people that have got cancer, it's a faster growing type of cancer, it then effectively sucks all your nutrition and your oxygen to the wrong place.
Okay, and then
that's when things go terribly wrong.
As a child's growing, a lot of cell change happening, and then to have these cancers form, that's brutal.
That's why cancer in the young tends to be more aggressive, because your cells are multiplying rapidly. As you say, you're growing. When you get older, not always, but often the cancers are a little bit more lazy because everything is slowing down that little bit, and so the cancer doesn't develop quite as quickly. And as I say, once you reach the age of 80, say, and that's just a rough mark I have in my head, and what a lot of doctors use as sort of a benchmark. Once you reach around 80, it's no longer the concern for it to be hereditary cancer, because the likelihood is you are more predisposed to getting cancers because your cells are not working as well, they're not duplicating quite as well as they should do, and therefore you're more likely to get something to go wrong and create a cancerous growth.
So hereditary and non-hereditary cancers.
Yes.
The hereditary is just what we're talking about, stuff that you're born with and it progresses. The non-hereditary ones are the ones that actually you can do something about, typically, right?
Not quite the case now. I mean, if it's hereditary, sometimes you get a heads up on the situation because your parents may have had something.
So like breast cancer, in a sense, that tends to be hereditary?
It's a very common one to be hereditary. It doesn't tend to be, it's quite a common one out of the cancers. And because, you often see it in quite young people, again, it's a little marker, this might be hereditary cancer. And so what you can do is you can actually get blood tests to check, do you have the defaulted genes? So let's say, for instance, my mum and her mum and my mum's sister all had breast cancer. I could say at a young age, I'm going to go and get tested to see, do I have the genes which are more, they don't guarantee I'm going to get cancer, but they would predispose me, I'm more likely to get the cancer. And then I can make the choice myself. Do I want to have a double mastectomy? Do I want to go for more regular screening at a younger age? Or do I just want to see what happens and then deal with it and just be more aware of checking my breasts more regularly, etc. So then people are just equipped with that information to do with what they want to. So in some ways, having hereditary cancer can be helpful. However, obviously nobody wants to know that they're more likely to get a cancer, because it doesn't guarantee they're going to get it either.
Just another thing to have to worry about, right?
I think cancer is something that people are always going to worry about. And this year, the big C has changed from cancer to COVID.
Right.
And people are using it as the big C. But however, I think people often panic when they hear cancer.
My grandfather was like that,
Really?
Oh man! As soon as someone said cancer, that was it. He was just like, "Well, they're gone," and that was his big fear. He was going to the doctor. Okay, we're checking for something, and we're going to see. And he's like, "Don't tell me I got cancer. Don't tell me I got cancer." He was just terrified of cancer.
But I mean, yes, cancer can be bad, and I've worked in an oncology ward, where I only saw the bad cases, because people that were admitted were only the ones that had become severely ill, and they were often there to either die because they had a complication or the chemotherapy wasn't working well. However, that's a very skewed viewpoint, because statistically, so many cancers have got well over a 50% success rate. When I say success rate, that means in 5 years' time, they are still cancer-free after having their initial cancer.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Yeah, and it's not saying that, you've only got 5 years. That means that you're kind of considered to be cured from that cancer if you've managed to survive 5 years after. Breast cancer particularly has got an exceptionally good rate of, I think it's like 80% of survival rate. And don't forget, some people are presenting to the doctors when they've already spread and they've got really severe metastatic disease. if people are doing what they're supposed to and checking themselves and they get tested early, no reason why you can't.
Okay.
You can't treat it.
Nice. And this is that whole thing, right, that we constantly talk about, is doing the self-exams, taking the necessary steps in advance to detect things earlier.
And I think that's something that we all need to educate ourselves on and be aware of. And life gets busy. It's so easy to put it, forget about it, think, I'll do that soon. Or especially because some of these tests, they're quite invasive. I mean, think about a female smear test or a male's prostate test examination. It's not something that's particularly comfortable. It's not something that we want. I mean, I had my postnatal review recently, and they said, when did you have your last smear test? And I thought, oh, great, it was the year ago.
You just had a baby, and stuff.
I said, just before I got pregnant, I won't need to do it yet. And then they said, oh, okay, about a year ago. And I thought, darn, yes, that means we're going to do it again.
Okay, I've got to have it.
So yes, I have to have another, and it's not pleasant, and people don't like it, but you've got to think it's the lesser of the two evils.
So many people avoid them. Like all these kinds of tests, and sometimes I think, in terms of prostate and stuff. So from a guy's side, those tests have gotten a little bit better.
Well, and then they continue to improve as well. You're not going to do an examination like that unless you absolutely need to.
And it's not like you're getting one every other day. I mean, it's
When was the last time you had your prostate checked?
It's been over a year.
Yeah, it's
over a year. It's and it's one of those. And I was saying to my wife, I what, I got to go for a checkup. I think it's been way over a year.
You should go for a well-manned checkup anyway after you reach 50. I hate to say it, James.
Yeah.
But you're supposed to go and just get checked out anyway.
Well, the irony is, so we're here in Dubai. I mean, I have insurance from my employer. My insurance covers one of those complete checkups a year.
Yeah, you definitely need to take yourself down. You're so lucky
and likewise
to have that.
for my wife, it covers a checkup for her, and it covers a mammogram because she's of the right age as well. Listen to that.
Sorry,
don't be sorry. That's great.
We've done so well until now.
She's hungry. She's hungry. That's it.
Well, I was actually thinking that because we started quite late today, and I was thinking, I wonder how long I've got in the tank before she kicks off.
That's it. I can imagine. That. She's hungry. It's like, come on.
Do you know, it's funny because we're talking about cancers and obviously prevention. You become so much more aware once you become a parent of your own health. And especially when they're young, I'm sure as they get older, they're self-sufficient, they'll be okay. And obviously you still want to be there to see them get married, see them go through life, find out what they do with their life. But when they are so little, it's such a horrible feeling.
You can't get injured. You can't be sick. You get a tingly thing in your throat. It's like, oh no. Or, you got a pain in your side and you're kind of going, oh no, what's that about? I don't have time to be out of commission.
I think I told you the other week I had a really sore throat. And
that's what you said.
And I knew I was getting a cold. It was the weirdest cold I've ever had, actually. But I knew I was getting a cold and I just thought, I just don't have time. And luckily it wasn't a bad one in the end. The sore throat only lasted 2 days, and then the cold, it wasn't a bad one. But sometimes you can be really out, you feel terrible with the cold, but there's no time to, you've still got to get on with it, you've still got to do the school run, you've still got to do everything else. So I was just thinking, oh no, please.
I want to go back to cancer for a second. And one of the cancers that I'm actually really surprised at how people, especially here in a sunny place, tend to be pretty slack with. And skin cancers. And I say this only because we were talking a little bit ago that I was away for a week. We took a staycation week and we went to Abu Dhabi, got our PCR tests, and went to several different hotels and enjoyed and very different hotels too. It was really, we went desert, we went downtown, we went sort of resort living. And very different experiences, all good, but just very different. And in all of those cases, we end up by the pool. Like, that's what my wife and I do.
You look very tanned, James.
Well, we go and sit by the pool. I've got my sun top on. I'm like the only guy at the pool who's wearing a sun top. I got a hat on. I've got glasses on. I'm covered, and I'm wearing sun protection. So I've made sure I've got my nose coat on and stuff around my face, and exposed parts of the skin are covered with sunblock. But I'm the only guy like that. I'm in the pool and I see everyone's out there and they're buff and they're trying to show off their pecs, no shirts on, kids, no sun tops on, no hats. I'm just going, are you guys crazy?
I guess the thing is, are they wearing sunscreen? And not just that, are they wearing the appropriate sunscreen?
Well, that's the thing. And then then you're sitting there and you're watching people put on the sunscreen. And what's the latest one that everyone loves? These spray bottles. This is the suntan lotion companies are laughing because they put like in a teaspoon of sunscreen in there and they charge you 20, 30, 40 dirhams for something that costs, like 5 cents. So they're laughing. And then the best part is you watch people putting it on. So I never buy that stuff. I buy the full lather and I get it all over me and it's like a full layer and then I let it sit because you got to let it.
Yes, before you jump in the pool.
Yeah, you got to let it temper, right? Let it soak in. But I see the people spraying and I keep hearing the Jim Croce song. I'm pretty sure it's Jim Croce. No. I think it's Three Dog Night. You know the great.
You have to sing it to us, James.
The one, it goes, you don't tug on Superman's cape, you don't spit into the wind, you don't pull the cap off the old Long Ranger, and you don't mess around with Jim Burton. I think that's
that was amazing.
But the thing is, spit into the wind. You don't spit into the wind. You don't pee into the wind, right? If you're out, but you also don't fire on your suntan lotion into the wind. And I see people doing it, and I see them firing, and it's like going everywhere except on them.
It's not just that. Yes, you're right. It's about how you apply it, how regularly you apply it. Read the back. It will tell you. Usually sunscreen only lasts for 2 hours. Yeah. So you should be reapplying it.
Sweat factor.
Yeah. And not even just that. It's it just doesn't last. You've got to keep reapplying, probably even more regularly in theory, theoretically, if you are sweating. As you say, you've got to let it temper. You shouldn't be jumping in the pool straight away. It will give you instructions on the back. Yeah. And also, I hate to say it, but the brand makes a difference too. Yeah. If you've got one that's got effectively a physical barrier to the sun, so like a zinc oxide in the back, that's brilliant. That's the kind of one.
That's what I use. You spend more for that stuff.
Yes, of course you do spend more because it's probably a better quality product. Well, it is. It's certainly better protection from the sun. Yeah. I can't comment on the sprays versus the lotions because it depends on the technology that's used, and I don't know enough about that. I just know you want to be covering yourself in it, and it's a shame, but everyone's just more concerned about trying to get a tan as quickly as possible.
Well, and then you see the people who are just beet red, and it's like, oh no, they're going to be in so much pain, and they're just out in the sun getting more sunburn, and I just keep thinking, what about the accumulated skin damage? What about the possibility of melanomas that are being you're creating that possibility
and increasing.
And why do you want to do that? And that's gonna pop in and when you're 40, 50 and you've done irreversible skin damage. And I mean, why do you want to do that?
I mean, gosh, I was the worst when I was younger, honestly, James. I was definitely that person that didn't use sunscreen, was lying out. I've got loads of moles. Not that people without moles are not at risk. It just means that if you have moles that they are more potently like to change. You also, and I think because I tanned, I thought it was okay, but yet you are less likely to burn, and UVB, which causes burning, it can cause cancer a little bit more sometimes. So people that are red or have got red hair, etc., they are more likely to develop skin cancers. That just is a fact. But that doesn't mean that somebody with darker skin or somebody that tans is not going to develop a skin cancer. So it's up to you to take your own protection, really. Plus, there's so many great fake tans these days.
I've never done one of those, but who's that guy? Who's the actor that was really famous for the fake tans? American guy. Can't remember his name.
I don't know. Loads of them? James, one. There's loads.
I was watching actually a TED Talk. It's a really good one with this fashion model. And she comes out and she does a change on stage too, because she comes out in a little black dress and high pumps, and then she turns into a normal person, as in flats, puts on a longer skirt, and then she just talks about her modeling career and shows pictures. And how this all fits back is she says, hey, I actually probably look pretty good today because I was on a photo shoot yesterday and I had a spray tan. And the spray tan's still on. Yeah. But she's just laughing about, how the perception of everything. And it was actually, I'll have to send you the link because it's just a great video of her talking about, she's just got a great life. But she says, and she's showing photos of her doing her modeling. And she's showing this one and she goes, okay, well, that photo there, I'm 16. And she's sort of cuddled up to a guy and she's got her hands through her hair and she's got an arched back. And she's going, so in that photo, I'd never had a boyfriend. I'd never kissed a boy before. And I didn't actually know how I was supposed to be with the boy. So the photographer was saying, okay, arch your back a little bit more, do this, make this kind of face. She's going, I didn't know any of that stuff. but the picture would make her look like she's, you know, whatever.
So the picture makes her look like she's been out in the sunshine, and really she's just been got a bottle of San Moritz all over her body. I mean, in Liverpool, tanorexia is exceptionally prevalent.
Tanorexia.
And you can actually get unlimited spray tans in certain places.
Really?
But more scary actually is, obviously we live in Dubai, they're not needed as much, but there's loads and loads of sunbeds back home. I mean, every street, every village, every little town, they've all got a sunbed shop. And for whatever reason, and I don't know the science behind it, they are more likely to cause skin cancer as well. Okay. And since they were developed, the rates of skin cancer have gone up dramatically. You just have to look, the curve goes up quite significantly in the last number of years for skin cancer.
So what's the protocol for you and I? We're going to go see our GP. Is there a cancer protocol? Is there a cancer kind of thing? Because we're talking oncology. You know, I go in and, you know, they do some blood, they do some this, you know, they're looking at cholesterol, blood pressure. I don't know what else they're looking for. But is cancer now one of those things that's also important to be screened for?
Well, it is, and it depends on the individual cancer, and it's very difficult because there's a lot of debate. Do we screen for as many cancers as possible every single year? Or do we wait and do more reactive type medicine? Because over-testing is also problematic. It's expensive. It can cause a lot of health anxiety that's unnecessary.
Right.
Also, you can start to then look for something, find something that was never even anything anyway, but, you know, is a bit...
It's very North American, the over-testing.
Yeah, very much an American thing. I know.
Whereas
that
a European thing is much more, hey, let's wait and see. But you meet American doctors, hey, we're going to get you in for a test.
And there's probably a fine line in the middle where it's just right. And it's very hard to get there. You know, I know so many people, especially here in Dubai, who have pushed and pushed for tests. We sent them off for a CT. There's been no symptoms. They've had the CT. They've found something that maybe, not sure what this is. It doesn't look like cancer, but we're not sure. Then they have to go for a more invasive test. The whole time their anxiety is absolutely steaming away. And then eventually you find out that it's absolutely nothing. And so that's not ideal either. So for certain cancers, there are protocols such as smear tests, breast cancer, prostate cancer.
So it's kind of like there's kind of like that common big group of things.
Yes, and the general rule of thumb is if you find a lump or a bump, you've got unexplained weight loss, you suddenly lose your appetite, any of those, you go to your GP. And then with further questioning, you could normally find an avenue that's more appropriate to go and test for. Especially the other one that I've not mentioned actually. So we've mentioned weight loss, unexplained weight loss, anorexia, which just means lack of appetite, any lump or bump that's new or that's changing, and any blood loss anywhere. So are you coughing up blood? Have you got blood PR, so per rectum? So are you passing blood in your stools? Any change in bowel habit as well? Any of that cluster, you go and see your GP. And then from then on, you have a conversation, you get pointed in the right direction.
So there's all these things that people don't want to do. Like how many men want to do a breast exam? You know, and I say men for themselves. I was watching.
They don't even think about it.
Yeah, you know, and you know, you're in the shower. Are you feeling for lumps? Do you know what to feel for? Are you doing it? Men don't want to do this, or feeling their testicles or things to see. They don't want to do that. I'm wondering if women want to do a self-exam either. I'm thinking probably not. And the easiest things to do, but we seem so averse to doing that first sort of stage of the prevention.
You know, a lot of people used to come and see me just to have a breast exam done, and they said they weren't sure whether they were doing it properly, etc. I'd bring them in, I'd do it for them, and then I'd teach them how to do it. And I think it's just laziness.
Save them 400 dirhams or whatever, right? Or
their insurance company.
And even if you're in the NHS, you're still getting paid as the doctor to do it. It's saving the NHS some money too.
The NHS is probably not quite as willing to do this. They will do, of course, they will. The doctors will do it. But again, it's not just about, oh, right, we'll come in here. The theory would be come in here next month and I'll do it for you again. I'm NHS trained. It's like, look, I will do it for you this time, of course. I'll do it for you any time that you're really anxious about it. But ideally, I would teach you and you can do it at home every month and do it for yourself. And therefore, then when you are concerned, you can come in and I'll do it again for you and see if there is an area to be concerned about. And I tell you what, the screening program in the UK is really, really excellent for breast cancer. Even if you are very young, and therefore less likely to have breast cancer, you found something that really doesn't feel like it's anything to be concerned about, you're taken straight away within the week to a clinic, and you have an ultrasound or a mammogram, whatever's more appropriate depending on age, and you go from there. It's very, very quick, and I do believe that it's very good here, and certain centres I know in particular are very good at dealing with people that have got lumps and bumps in the breasts.
So we've got the exams, we've got the visual checking, your stool sample and that, and which I think people don't do either. And they want to ignore anything that's going on down there. It's like,
unless you're James Pike, where you love.
I'm always checking out. I was like, what do we got going on here? It's like
my favourite is when you text me to tell me what's going on down there, James.
Yeah, and change of smell is always a big one. It's like, oh, hold on, what's going on here? Then I have to sit down for 20 minutes and think, okay, what have I changed in my diet? Is there something here I need to be thinking about? It's terrible.
I mean,
texture, change of texture.
Is this going to be edited out?
No, I'm leaving this all in. Mucus, it's a big one. No one wants to think about that.
That normally means everyone has mucus, but if you have a surplus of it or sudden change, then it's likely inflammation in the bowel. But there's lots of other areas. Again, we talk about trendy cancers or trendy illnesses.
That's it. Okay.
There's a lot that just aren't really talked about. What about oral cancers? Do people ever open their mouth and have a little look at what's going on in there?
No.
The most common thing is they might find a bit of bleeding, and then they maybe take their iPhone, they put the light on, they go and have a little look. But people they don't check.
Tongue cancer.
Tongue cancer is a big one.
Tongue, throat.
Very common in alcoholic people that have abused alcohol, and also people that smoke. Yeah, because think about all the acid production that's going on, that's coming up into the mouth sometimes, and you've got if you smoke or you drink a lot of alcohol, you get a lot of acid in your stomach that is created, and often creates reflux, and sometimes that can even come into the mouth. You've also then got, effectively, they're both carcinogens that are going through that area, so the pharynx. So you can get cancer anywhere within the mouth.
So I got a question about carcinogens just really quickly. So we know that a carcinogen is something that can promote cancer.
Yes.
Don't you find it weird that when you look at the ingredients of things that have known carcinogens in them, maybe even a small quantity, but maybe not, like cigarettes, like everyone knows that the smoke in a cigarette produces carcinogens.
Yes.
Why would you even go near it? Or some of these food dyes that in combination with things, and a lot of those have been removed from the market, so they're not around anymore, but they
in children's things as well.
Oh yeah. Like why would we even go down that route if there's this remote chance that somewhere along the line it could lead to a cancerous growth in us?
Well, look, I can speak from experience because I have my addiction, don't I? I've got my Diet Coke.
Yeah, and I noticed you're drinking club soda today. That's wow.
Is that good?
That's excellent.
Yeah, thank you.
I go through cases of that stuff.
This is my e-cigarette, which I've mentioned to you before. So it's not a Diet Coke, but I get the pop, I get the fizz. It's great.
That's the same for me. It's got 0 calories. It's got nothing in it. It's
got a bit of salt, not ideal.
Yeah,
it's still got carbon dioxide, which the debate can cause osteoporosis by the the carbon dioxide can react with the calcium in the bone. They believe. Again, it's a bit of a contentious issue as to whether it can then cause weakening of the bones. So it's not perfect. It's better than a Diet Coke. And so I can speak with great gusto in saying it's hard because you recognise it's not the right thing. But we talked earlier about how people think it won't happen to me.
Yeah, that's huge, isn't it? Oh no, it's going to happen to someone else.
Yeah,
it's 1 in 50,000. I've never won the lottery. I've never been in an accident. It's not going to happen to me. It happens to other people.
And that's it. And I think you've lived your life 50, few on top, years of thinking.
56 this year. I'm 56.
I don't believe it.
Can you imagine?
I don't
56?
believe it.
I know. That's what that's crazy.
Well, you've lived all that time being, touch wood, relatively healthy.
Yeah.
So you've not had a problem. So why would you be able to accept that that's going to happen to you? It's really hard for people to actually acknowledge that they're vulnerable and likely to get ill. And again, with you, I've just spoken to you numerous times about how it's been having children that has really pushed me to want to give up the bad stuff. So, somebody smokes, they love it, they're addicted, they actually have a physical addiction and a desire. It's what they think about regularly. It's hard, it is hard work, and it's something that people have got to make a very, very conscious effort to try and give up and accept that not only will this potentially happen to you, but in some people, smoking, for instance, it does happen to you. It's just when. Do you die from something else first, or does it catch up with you in time?
I guess it really becomes thinking about the overall environment that we live in and all these things that we enjoy and what are, it's balance, right? You don't want to give everything up, but finding that happy medium.
My dad often comments that he would rather live a happy, full life and having some of the things that he enjoys than a really long life. And I think it's up to you. You've got to make that decision. And as we've discussed before, you can be the healthiest person alive and walk out on Shakeside Road by accident, or be on a car crash on Shakeside Road, and that's the end of your life. So yeah, you've got to take your pick your poison.
So when we start talking cancers, this becomes, don't worry about some of the stuff, and don't be paranoid, but do the screenings that are necessary, do your self-exams, think a little bit more consciously about some of the things that you're ingesting. And if you're ingesting a lot of diet colas, remember that your aspartames and things in large quantities could have impacts. And that's not saying that 1 or 2 of these cans a week or so is going to be a big issue. Probably not. But if you're drinking a 6-pack or a 12-pack a day, maybe. But that's the same if you're drinking 4 pots of coffee a day, right? So,
but also if you want to drink all that Diet Coke, or you want to smoke, or you want to consume vast amounts of alcohol, own it. So if that's what you want to do, and you decide I'm happy to take that risk, that's fine. It's your life, it's your body. You do with it what you want. We're just here to tell you facts. That's all.
I had an uncle like that. He owned it. He was a smoker. He was a chain smoker, and he owned it. He says, this is what I do. And this is me. And if I'm gonna have cancer or whatever, I own it. And he did. He owned it right up to his last day. He's like, this is me. Everyone's given up smoking, and not Uncle Walter.
But let's also accept that there's an awful lot of people that don't do these things. They're exceptionally healthy. And
he wasn't encouraging people to smoke. It was just his thing.
Yeah, that's fine, as long as you're not doing it in public places and passing it on to other people. But some people get cancer. They even get lung cancer when they haven't smoked, and it's just unfortunate, and it's kind of sadly luck of the draw. And what do you do about that? Absolutely nothing. There's nothing you can do. It's just some people are going to get it, some people aren't.
I know. I'm almost circling right back to the start.
Clever, James.
And when we started talking about this, we started talking about oncology, and we started talking about younger kids with more cancers right now, possibly more hereditary cancers. But do you think we're just becoming more attuned to cancer now, or do you think there's just more cancer?
Definitely, we're diagnosing more cancers because we're testing more. People visit their doctors more regularly, but it is considered that cancers are on the rise. The other thing that we haven't talked about is stress. So inflammation.
Stress leads to cancer?
Inflammation.
Or can help?
No, definitely. It can lead to cancer. It can lead to cancer. Inflammation in the body generally is a precursor to cancer. It's something that can cause cancer. And we have a lot more inflammation. We don't eat raw foods like we used to. We don't eat plain foods. We have things that have been processed. We expose ourselves to the sun more, or we don't use our sunscreen. It's the fashion now to get a tan. That creates free radicals in the body. Again, things that can cause cancers. There's, I often blame things like polycystic ovaries to the things that we eat. We eat more sugar, again, causes free radicals. Again, a precursor to cancer. We effectively abuse ourselves a little bit more than we used to. If you think about years ago, there was obviously the stress of, do we have enough food to eat? Do we have our shelter, etc.? But there's such a different type of mental stress, I think, these days. We're not living, I don't believe, how we're meant to live. And it's just the stress from, gosh, you even just have to go on Instagram for a second, and it can be stressful for people. But we're talking about people not having the time to even just check their own bodies. I mean, how ridiculous is that? People don't have the time or the headspace to think, I'll quickly just check my breast. It takes 5 minutes. People are just deprived of time, and that causes stress. And I think that results in people abusing a bit more alcohol as a way to try and unwind and relax. People use smoking as a bit of a crutch again for stress relief. And we just don't live how we're meant to live. We need a reset.
We need a little bit of our own personal resets. Just get things into focus.
I think that's happening in some countries. People are now starting to think about occupational well-being, mental health. We've talked a lot about this in the past, and I think that will definitely help. We just need to like just take things down a notch a little bit.
Yeah.
And also there's a big drive now for healthier eating, I think, and not having as much processed foods, and that definitely will.
Have you ever been by a food processing plant? You ever driven by one?
No, can't say I
You know
have.
what? You drive by a food processing plant, and I've been by a few out in the East Coast in Canada, the McCain's, brothers and the family, the McCain's French fries and all the, the Green Giant stuff, so it's another brand. But you go by those and you get your frozen peas or your frozen carrots, and they smell very nice when you put them in the microwave. Go by the processing plant where they process those things.
Oh, what?
Horrible smelling.
Really?
Yeah, you'd think it would smell beautiful. No.
But yeah,
No.
the word on the street is, although there's nothing as good as the real thing, having frozen vegetables it still gives you nutrients, etc. But yeah, of course, if you eat fresh from the farm, it's going to be the best of the best.
And then there's the places that are making those meals, right? That are coming in the cans, and they've got it's horrible smell.
I think a can's maybe a little bit different too.
Well, in cans, I always go back to a program, The Nature of Things, Dr. David Suzuki, years ago. It's got to be at least 30 years ago, 25 for sure. And he did a show on plastics. And he was talking about phantom pheromones and all these things. And one of the big areas that he kind of keyed in on was the fact that there's so many plastics and so many things we don't realize they're in. And the linings of cans, tin cans, are lined with plastic. There's a plastic coating on the lining of the interior of a tin can that in the past had been a leaching agent. Now, a lot of that's been fixed, they've done new things, but still, and it just, again, goes back to what we've been talking about.
There's just a lot of chemicals around, aren't there? There's just loads of chemicals, and ultimately, what predisposes to cancer? We've talked a lot about predisposing. What is that? It basically means that you speed up the cell turnover in your body, and therefore, if we do anything faster than doing it slower, it's more likely to go wrong. So
slow down a little bit.
Slow down. Slow down. That's what's the motto in the end of this podcast? Slow down.
Slow down. And you know what? That's where we're going to leave it. And I think that's what we need to do on our next when we meet up again.
We're talking about slowing down.
Talk about slowing down. We need to get our good friend back in.
I mean, can I just say, this morning has been absolutely horrendous.
I know
for me.
you've been crazy.
I've had a crazy morning.
I've actually been here slowed down.
Yeah.
I've been relaxing, and it was funny because the messaging was going back and forth. But it was only after I realized, we're supposed to be starting now, that I went and picked up my phone, which is recording, and turned it back on and said, I wonder if Jenna sent any messages. And I'm looking, there we go. Oh dear.
Yeah, so we're saying slow down. It's very easy to talk about things. We appreciate it's harder to do it. So
there we go.
Cool.
Well, it's been a lot of fun. And I've been talking so quietly.
No, you haven't, James.
I've been so quiet. You're going to hear it on the podcast. Neva's sleeping through everything. It's absolutely fantastic. Fantastic.
Oh, don't worry. I think, by the way, just as a quick note before we finish, I'm sure I've made up some words today.
That's good. Made up words are always a good thing.
Why not?
But don't worry, someone's going to be truth-checking everything we're saying. Dr. Jenna Burton, I'm James Pikeway. This is DocTalk, coming to you from the Rove Hotel downtown Dubai in the podcast studio. And look us up on Instagram. Look us up on YouTube, look us up on Podaholics with a K. Just find us all over the place. And drop us an email, podaholicswithak@gmail.com. You got anything you want to say? Share? Get in touch? Talk to you again soon. Thank you very much for listening. Share the link.